Hello film fans, and welcome to this episode of the Sherlockian. Now, you've probably seen the title to this episode and thought, oh come on, that's a bit clickbaity, isn't it? I mean, no one dislikes Planet Earth, do they? I mean, it's one of the BBC Natural History Unit's landmark series. I mean, it's so successful that they made another series. And there were so many firsts. I mean, it was the first series, just to take a random example, to film snow leopards hunting, for example. And it did so many things right. So why, when I was asked to review Planet Earth, did I feel a slight kind of tinge of nervousness? Well, I've got a confession to make. I've never really liked Planet Earth that much. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's individual sequences in it that I think are absolutely brilliant, and I'll come to that in a minute. But I've always just found it a bit disappointing, and I know exactly why I feel like this. It's generally because of this book. Planet Earth, the making of an epic series. Now, as a child, we didn't have television set in my house until, I don't know, I was probably just sort of end of, well, primary school as we call it in England. And so as a result, I saw most documentaries sort of through DVD form, if you like. And I did see Blue Planet quite soon after it came out, but I never saw Planet Earth until I was much older, quite a long time after the series came out. And this book was all I had to sort of live the series, if you like, and I was so hyped for it. I was really excited when I finally got to see it, because this book is absolutely amazing. I mean, it takes you completely behind the scenes in a way I'd never really experienced before about a documentary series, and it's got so many brilliant stories in it. Like, for example, the team filming Asian short-clawed otters almost got kidnapped by the Indian equivalent of Al Capone. One of their camera women filming humpback whale calves almost drowned after one of them got a bit too playful, and I think it broke, I think it was her hip, and basically just by rubbing itself against her. Another one of their camera crew filming baby sperm whales almost got eaten by one of the adults after, again, the young whale came up and rubbed itself against himself and the camera housing, and the camera housing was colder than it obviously expected, and it upset it, and it sort of, swam off quickly, squealing, and then he looked down and he saw an adult sperm whale underneath him with his mouth open. Thankfully, he didn't get eaten, but still, that must have been quite terrifying. All these great stories, and of course, after reading about them, seeing the series itself, when you see, that sequence, but much shorter, and obviously David Attenborough talking about something completely different, that did feel almost a bit of a letdown, although there's no reason why it should have done, of course. So, what did I actually think of the series itself when I saw it? Well, I must admit, I've always thought the sequencing, if you like, of the series is a bit weird. This is particularly apparent in the first episode, but it's apparent, I think, throughout the entire series. It just seems a bit weird. It's very short-paced. So they'll show you something and then very quickly move on to something else. And I think this was partly down to the production teams almost their core goal, which was to show you things you've never seen before. Now, there are many advantages to showing people something they've never seen before. It's obviously very exciting, and it can lead to brilliant sequences like, for example, the snow leopard hunting. But it can also lead to very short sequences because, of course, once you get there, you might be the first people, ever to, I don't know, go to the Himalayas and film, yak herds. But then what do you do when, you've just got some shots of them moving around? I mean, you obviously can't show it for too long because otherwise people will get bored. And I think that was mainly the problem. They had so much they needed to cram in. It's just very short, snappy stuff. So when they do slow down and show you something for a longer time, Planet Earth is absolutely brilliant. Even today, obviously, with better filming techniques, and a lot of the stuff they filmed for the first time has since been refilmed for other stuff, it still looks absolutely brilliant. I mean, it actually contains, Planet Earth, one of my favourite film sequences for a documentary ever. It might even be my favourite, just in terms of shot composition. It's shot by one of my favourite cameramen, Simon King, and he films, for the first episode, great white sharks hunting off the coast of South Africa, and it is absolutely fantastic. There's literally nothing I would change about the entire sequence. It's shot in this very kind of, I'm not really, I'm very knowledgeable about camera equipment, but I think it's kind of like low exposure. So it's very dark most of the time, and the water looks very dark, and the seals look very dark. And then it begins with this like spectacular sequence of one of the sharks breaching out of the water and grabbing a seal. And for a second, all you can see is just this dark hulk as it emerges in slow motion, and then suddenly you see this bright flash of white as it turns around, and you realise why they're called great white sharks, because their bellies are very pale, which of course is, camouflage for if something's underneath them and they're looking up at the surface, they can't see them because it's suddenly much paler. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. And then you see this huge maw of a mouth open and just shut, and even in slow motion it's terrifying, and you really see the teeth exposed as the lips sort of curl back, and it's wonderful and gorgeous, and they do a brilliant job, and they very occasionally intercut it with sequences of, well, not even sequences, just shots of the shark swimming underwater, and you never see very much. It's just, like a fin or a dark shape, and then it comes back to, the action again, and it's just wonderful. I really get, even now after seeing it so many times, get a massive adrenaline rush through watching it. And again, there is some other brilliant sequences as well. Obviously there's the famous snow leopard hunt, which I already mentioned a few times, which was, again, really gripping. Again, it's kind of shot in this kind of low light, because obviously, there's not a lot of sunlight up in the mountains in Nepal where they were filming. And it's most famous for this brilliant sequence where the snow leopard stalks a markhor, which is like this kind of mountain goat, and then they grab one of it's a short chase, and it grabs it, and then after a struggle, the markhor falls off the ledge into this massive river below, and the markhor gets swept away and presumably drowns. And it's just a really epic, action-packed sequence, which looks brilliant. Yeah, and of course the famous thing about Planet Earth is, and one of the things that I'm very grateful for, is that it pioneered a lot of camera techniques that other documentaries have used since. So probably the most common filming sequence they pioneered, if you like, is filming things from the air with like a camera connected underneath a helicopter, so you get these nice stable shots and with absolutely gorgeous wide vistas, and they use it to film wolves hunting caribou. There's actually 2 sequences of that because, as I know from reading the book, they were so successful at filming wolf hunts, they had so many that I presume they wanted to use more than one. And they also shoot, again, one of my favourite sequences, certainly in the series, and again it's probably up there my sort of ranking of sequences in natural history productions that I really like, and that's the sequence where they film African wild hunting dogs in the Okavango Delta hunting impala. And again, that's brilliantly done because it's unlike the wolf ones where it's mainly just shot all from the air. They actually intercut it between the ground and the air. So they're hunting in the bush, so you can't always see exactly what's happening, and then you'll see the impala move through the dust, and then you see the dogs streaming out behind them. And what's really good about it is that you can actually see the tactics they use. In old natural history books, they'll often talk about lions hunting, and they'll say, one lion sneaks up behind them, and it chases the animals before it, and the others are creeping around, and then they go straight into an ambush and jump on it. And actually, if you watch lions hunt in documentaries, you can actually see that's not true at all. They don't do that. If anything, it's kind of improvised. The lions will spread out, and then, sometimes it does look like one's chased an animal towards another and it grabs it, but I don't think it's planned out. But with the hunting dogs, you can actually see them do it. You can see that actually they almost look at each other and then spread out round, and one dog starts to run and the others, will outflank the others. And you can actually see that they are almost chasing a deliberate target towards one of the ambushers lying in wait. And it's absolutely fascinating, and the tension builds up as you're watching these dogs spread out, and and then basically comes down to one dog chasing one impala, and the impala jumps into the water to escape it, and the dogs start to spread out to try and cut it off. And you can see that the impala can't swim very well, and it's going to have to come back to the bank soon enough, or it's going to drown. And then suddenly, and apparently the film crew, again, I know this from reading the book, the film crew were quite relieved because they were a bit worried about filming a hunting dog kill, because famously hunting dogs don't kill their quarry first. They actually eat it alive. They don't really have the necessary adaptations to drag an animal as big as, say, an impala or a young zebra or a wildebeest to the ground and kill it. They basically have to eat it standing up, essentially, until it dies of blood loss and pain. And obviously the crew didn't really want to watch this happen or film it. But thankfully for them, the other hunting dogs in the forest have already killed an impala off screen. And so the hunting dogs around the water, leave the one they've cornered. And the impala manages to swim to shore and escape. So it has kind of a happy ending, and obviously much more exciting like that, and less gruesome than seeing an impala get eaten standing up. I think you'll agree. So yeah, I do like bits of Planet Earth. In fact, I like lots of the bits of Planet Earth, and I do admire what they set out to achieve. But unlike, say, Blue Planet, which I can go back to and still absolutely adore, years and years later. I mean, it's one of my favourite documentaries ever, still to this day. Planet Earth has never really had that kind of attachment, possibly because I just didn't see it at the time. If I had, maybe it would do. Yeah, I feel quite guilty about it, to be honest. But that's not to say I don't enjoy watching it. I mean, I do, and it's got some absolutely wonderful sequences, and I'm glad they made it. But yeah, I'd love to know whether I'm the only person that feels like this in the entire world, or whether there's anybody else that felt a little bit disappointed by it, or there are stuff that they would prefer that they'd done differently. But anyway, that was the Sherlockian. Thanks very much for watching, film fans, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.